My name is Julia Holloway, and I'm 31 years old. I run my own cleaning business, 3 employees, a full client roster, and enough savings to buy a house outright if I wanted to. But none of that mattered to my family, not once, not even on the night my younger sister Vanessa got engaged. The dinner was held at Lucchese's, the kind of restaurant where the waiters pull out your chair and the menu doesn't list prices. My mother had booked the private back room for 22 people. Vanessa's fiancé, Preston Ashford, came from money that stretched back 3 generations, and his parents had flown in from Boston just for this. I wore a simple black dress, nothing flashy, because I never needed flashy to feel like myself. I hugged Vanessa when I walked in. She squeezed me back and whispered that she was glad I came. For a second, I actually believed the night might go smoothly. Then my mother pulled me toward the head of the table, where Preston's parents were seated. His mother, Eleanor, had silver hair pinned into a perfect twist, and the kind of posture that made you sit up straighter just standing near her. His father, Whitman, was quieter, nursing a glass of red wine, nodding along to whatever conversation was happening. Eleanor, Whitman, my mother said, her voice pitched loud enough for the whole table to hear, "This is our other daughter. She cleans houses for a living." The words landed like a plate dropped on tile. I felt my face go hot. Around the table, forks paused midair. Vanessa's eyes darted to me, and I saw her flinch, but she didn't say anything. My father, not to be outdone, added his own line, swirling his drink like he was delivering a punchline. "We've given up on her, honestly. Vanessa's always been the one who made something of herself." I wanted to disappear into the floor. 12 years of building something from nothing, of scrubbing floors on my hands and knees at 20, of hiring my first employee at 24, of turning that grind into a business that now cleans some of the most expensive homes in the city. All of it erased in 2 sentences at a dinner table, in front of strangers who would now only ever know me as the daughter who cleans houses. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, to defend the years I'd spent clawing my way to stability. But before I could speak, Eleanor set down her wine glass. Slowly, deliberately, the kind of movement that makes a room go still without anyone asking it to. She turned in her chair and looked at me. Not a glance, a long searching look. The kind you give someone when your brain is trying to catch up to something your gut already knows. Her eyes moved from my face to my hands, then back to my face again. "Wait," she said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper, but somehow it carried across the entire table. She didn't finish the sentence. She just stared at me, her lips parted slightly, like she'd seen a ghost sitting in a black dress at her son's engagement dinner. The table went silent. Not the polite lull of a pause in conversation, but a heavy, suffocating silence where you could hear the clink of ice in someone's water glass 3 seats down. Vanessa's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Preston looked between his mother and me, confused, waiting for someone to explain what was happening. My mother's face drained of color so fast I thought she might actually faint. Her hand gripped the edge of the table, knuckles going white. She glanced at my father, then at Eleanor, then at me, as if trying to figure out exactly how much trouble we were all in. I had no idea what Eleanor was about to say. I didn't know if it was good or bad, if she recognized me from somewhere, or if she'd simply pieced together something none of us had said out loud. All I knew was that in that one frozen moment, the entire dynamic of the dinner shifted, and my mother, who had spent years introducing me as an afterthought, looked more frightened than I had ever seen her in my life. Eleanor's mouth opened again, slower this time, and the whole table leaned in, waiting. Her hand rose slowly to her chest, and she let out a small, disbelieving laugh, the kind that escapes when your brain finally connects 2 pieces it couldn't reconcile before. "You're Julia Holloway. From Holloway Premier Residential Services." The room stayed frozen, but something in the air had changed. Whitman set down his fork and looked at his wife, then at me, waiting for context the rest of us didn't have yet. "We've been trying to get on your client list for 8 months, Eleanor said, shaking her head like she still couldn't quite believe it. "Our estate manager mentioned your company by name." She said you turned down 3 new clients last spring because your roster was full. I told her to keep trying. I had no idea the woman she was talking about was sitting across from me at my son's engagement dinner. My mother's mouth opened, but nothing came out. My father set his wine glass down so hard it clinked against his plate. I hadn't wanted to make a scene, so for a moment I just sat there, letting the words settle over the table. Then I found my voice. I started with 1 client and a bucket of supplies in the back of my car, I said quietly. Now I have 3 teams, a 6-month waiting list, and clients who trust me with houses worth more than this entire restaurant. I'm not ashamed of any of it. Eleanor reached across the table and took my hand, her rings cool against my skin. You shouldn't be. Whitman, remind me of the name of that senator's wife who raved about her service manager last month. Julia, Whitman said, a slow smile spreading across his face. It was Julia. Vanessa's eyes welled up, and she reached for my other hand under the table, squeezing it the way she used to when we were kids and our parents were fighting in the next room. I always knew, she whispered to me. I just never had the nerve to say it in front of them. My mother tried to recover, forcing a laugh that cracked halfway through. Well, we're very proud of everything Julia's built, she said, as if she hadn't just introduced me as an afterthought 20 minutes earlier. The words felt hollow, and everyone at the table knew it. Preston's cousin, a woman named Isabel Rutherford, actually scoffed audibly and shook her head before taking a long sip of her drink. Eleanor wasn't finished. She looked directly at my parents, her tone polite but unmistakably pointed. It's rare to build something so respected without any help. Most people in Julia's position have family backing, investors, connections. She did this with nothing. She paused, letting the words hang. That takes a kind of strength most people don't have. My father shifted in his seat, suddenly very interested in the bread basket. My mother's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. For the first time in my life, I watched my parents squirm under the weight of their own words, and it wasn't because I'd said anything cutting or cruel. I hadn't needed to. The truth had simply caught up to them, in front of the one family whose approval they'd been chasing all night. Dinner continued, but the energy had shifted permanently. Eleanor spent the next hour asking me questions about my business, genuinely curious, introducing me to Whitman's business partners as the Julia Holloway, like I was someone worth knowing. Preston, to his credit, apologized quietly to me near the end of the night, saying he had no idea his parents had been trying to reach my company for months. Vanessa hugged me tight before I left, her voice shaking. I'm sorry, Julia. I should have said something years ago. You don't have to apologize for them, I told her. Just don't let them do it to your kids someday. Driving home that night, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt something steadier, something that had been building in me for years without a name, vindication, maybe, or just the quiet relief of finally being seen for who I actually was, not who my parents needed me to be so they could feel better about themselves. My parents called the next morning. I let it go to voicemail. If you've ever been the family member who got written off, dismissed, or introduced as the disappointment while everyone else got praised, I want you to know your story isn't over. The people who doubted you don't get the final word. Your work does. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe, because there are so many more stories just like this one waiting for you right here.